Welcome to Ladies of Another View on Back. I am Mary, and today we have Jan and Carmen and special guest Lori Hinz. You might know her from No Apologies. Welcome to the show, Lori.
Thank you. It's great to be on again with y'all.
Amen. We just love having you. But Lori, you are the North Dakota GOP committee woman.
I am.
And there was some big action going on over the weekend. There was a meeting that you made part of it anyway.
Right?
Why don't you tell us about that? Tell our viewers, in layman's terms, what the meeting was about, why they called it, and what happened.
It was the state committee meeting, which means that is the executive committee and then all of the 47 district chairs get together. It's supposed to happen twice a year. It happened in June. We have the June one and we call it the roundup. And we did that June 19th. And then we were supposed to have a second meeting before the end of the year. And it was originally scheduled for the 13th of November. But at the last minute, it was canceled and moved. The weather wasn't bad, so it was kind of curious what was going on. But then it was explained to us that it was because redistricting had not completed. So we did have district chairs who were duly elected at that point on November 13th, and we could have probably had our meeting then, but it was moved. And then we had this meeting rescheduled for Saturday, December 18th. So some troubling, sweeping changes were put into the plan for the agenda, and when we got our packets and looked at them, there were a number of us on the state committee who looked at it and thought, this is really interesting. There's some pretty drastic things, one of which was possibly moving the convention to after the primary. Now let that ruminate with y'all for just a second and think about what that would do to a convention.
Well, that doesn't make any sense, first of all, because that's where we pick who we might want to go ahead and who we're going to endorse going into that convention.
Correct. And the thinking was that they wanted to supposedly wanted to open it up to more people, and that way the primary would allow a lot more people and a lot more robust discussion amongst all the people of the state rather than just those delegates to the state convention. I kind of understood it, but I really didn't understand it, because what it would do for the convention is it was really going to neuter it and render it useless. For all intents and purposes, it would be much more of a celebration than it would even be an actual deliberative assembly, and so that was troubling. So before the convention, a number of us in various districts and then me as national committee woman got together and we started talking about what we needed to do, because something was not right here. The problem was not with necessarily the items that were on the agenda. The problem was who was going to be voting on them, and the problem was that 8 district chairmen had been appointed rather than elected to be participating.
Why was that?
Because of redistricting. So when you do redistricting and you redraw the lines for various districts, what happens is sometimes people who live in a certain area are no longer in their district after redistricting is done. And because of that, you may have a group of 15 people on an executive committee, but there's only 5 or 6 left after the redistricting takes place, and they're not in the geographical area of that new redistricted area.
Okay, so if there are people that have not followed any political lines whatsoever, reorganizing, redistricting, all of these things are not going to make sense to them.
Right.
However, if we break it down just a little bit, there was also some legislation that took place that had an impact on different people being appointed as chairs.
Correct.
Because in years past, when there's been a redistricting, we haven't had this same issue.
Right.
Am I right?
Right, so
Okay.
far. It happens every 10 years with the census. And so what happened this time was they put a little emergency clause in, and they had HB 1513, I believe it was, and it allowed for the state party chairman to appoint people to those positions in a temporary capacity. And the wording was the chairman may appoint.
But was it not for a specific purpose, to help with the reorganization after redistricting?
Correct. That's how it was sold to the legislators.
Correct.
But it was used instead to appoint people to the committee. And just for the record, I have no problem with who was appointed. Some of them I know very well, some of them I don't know. But I had no problem with the appointees. It wasn't their fault that they got appointed.
Right.
But the problem is that because they were not duly elected in their districts, that makes it illegitimate. When you go and you do these sweeping changes and very, very big, important things to our party, you want to make sure that everybody is seated properly and that they are elected by their peers in their proper district. And that didn't happen. And that was our issue. That was the problem that my colleagues and I had on the meeting. So what we did is when we got to the meeting, we began the meeting. It started with a prayer and a pledge, and then it started with a roll call, and we did the roll call. And then right after the roll call on the agenda was the acceptance of the agenda. Well, we couldn't have the acceptance of the agenda as it stood, or we would be going through these items that were very sweeping. And so in order to do that, what we did is, to thwart that, I guess, is what we did is we offered a number of motions. And every single time we offered a motion, it was ruled out of order. And what we wanted from the motions was not necessarily the motions, but a discussion to be able to explain what we were doing and why we were making those motions. And we were making the motions in order to have a discussion on the fact that we had people who were not duly elected and representing their districts, but they were seated by appointment.
So this could be considered non-constitutional or unconstitutional.
Correct.
Because the Century Code says that you have to be an elected member, correct?
Correct. And that's
So-
right. It is a constitutional, it's a First Amendment issue, it's a 14th Amendment issue. It's an issue with just looking unethical.
Doesn't
And
it?
that is the problem. The optics are pretty bad. And in addition to that, what can you do? Well, you can have your meeting on the 13th of November.
As it should have been.
As it should have been. Or what you can do is, and I think I had somebody write to me and I wrote it down too. He says, this meeting could have easily taken place prior to redistricting, and then at least legitimate representatives from the districts would be voting. Somebody wrote to me today, and I'm like, this is so true. We could have waited, and that placeholder, as was intended, could have definitely waited until we did a reorganization meeting. And what we could have done at this meeting on December 18th, and what we were attempting to do, was just take the guts out of it, have our meeting, have our second meeting of the year, and then taking up those important issues after redistricting took place.
After the redistricting at the district level, so that they were duly elected district chairs that would be in the room.
Right. Redistricting and reorgs are hard to understand. Those words are not, people hear blah, blah, blah meeting, blah, 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 and I understand that. But once you learn how it works, they start at the district level, they reorganize and basically elect all of their hierarchy. So you have an executive committee in your district. This is really interesting too. For people who move to this state, they don't understand this at all because they use counties in a good portion of the rest of the country. We have legislative districts that we use, which is a little bit different.
We were talking about the meeting that was held on Saturday.
State committee meeting.
State committee meeting. Anything else you want to share regarding that?
It was interesting, some of the things you may have heard, some things were floating around online perhaps that you saw about what they were voting on, things like not only moving the convention to after the June primary, by the way, that lost. So we are
goodness.
not moving the convention.
God.
So yes, thankfully that one lost, which is interesting too because they took a vote on that, and I was given information that they had to make it a secret ballot, which is interesting. A secret ballot, I'll let you think about that for a while too and take your own conclusions. But they made it a secret ballot, and when they voted on it, they needed a number of 33 for it to pass, for them to move the convention to after the primary, and the vote was 30-19. Which is really interesting because there were 8 of us that had walked out at that point.
Wow.
So if you add that to the 19, you would get 27, which would put it 30-27, which would make it a lot closer than people think.
Yes.
I thought that was very interesting too. Another thing that they talked about, you may have seen, is they were attempting in some ways, it appeared, to make it more difficult for people to run for office. Things like, rather than a threshold of 5 signatures from district chairs in order to get your name on a ballot, it would take 20. They wanted to bump that up to 20 and quadruple the number, which was really interesting to me too, because why would you want to do that unless you wanted to make it more difficult for people to run for office?
And how many usually run, just say for committee woman, for example?
2.
Usually 2. And so...
And here's the other thing. There are 47 districts. So if you're going to bump that up to 20, that's almost half of
Right.
all of the districts. So why would you do that unless you want to make it a little more difficult for somebody to get their name on the ballot? So that was odd. And then another thing is, it used to be when I ran for office in 2020, and then I got elected in April of 2020. When I ran for office, I had no fee in order to run for office, and they wanted to add a fee of $1,000. Now, the position of National Committeewoman is so interesting because it is volunteer it's a volunteer committee. It's a volunteer job. There's no pay. We pay all our own expenses in our own way. And so I was like, why would they charge you to run for a volunteer position?
It makes no
just didn't make
sense.
sense to me on a regular,
No.
like, common sense level. But then they also were going to charge $2,500 if you want to run for a statewide office, or $5,000 for a congressional office. Now that kind of makes sense to me because you are going to make a salary, and a good, decent salary at that. And so that kind of makes sense. But at the same time, why are you going from 0 to 2,500 and 0 to 1,000 and 0 to 5K? I mean, that makes no sense to me either, unless you are trying to obstruct someone from running for office. That was what it spoke to me. That's what so no, I had a friend I was talking with earlier today, and he's not particularly a political person, but he says, why are they trying to keep members out?
Darn good question, Lori.
And I thought,
You've got
you
an
know what?
answer, don't you?
Stump the
I
band.
said the same thing. I'm like, that is the most fantastic question. Why would you try to keep people out of the Republican Party? That makes no sense. Unless you are attempting to hold on to some sort of power, and the people that are trying to get active in the party are threatening you in some way, or you're threatened by their zeal, or you're threatened by, so it's super confusing to me. I don't understand it, and I really don't understand the vote that was taken at the meeting to get rid of the YRs and the CRs. Now the YRs.
Could we go back a second
Yep.
and tell me about this whole funding mechanism for the party so you can get your name on the ballot? Did that pass, or did they vote on it?
Interestingly, the one for National Committeeman and Committeewoman, which I would argue is a volunteer position, did not pass. So what they did is they made an amendment, and so there is no charge to run for National Committeeman or Committeewoman, but they retained the charges for the higher offices.
So don't you think, even with those fees, some of that's going to go back into campaigning too? So they will technically.
But it also
kind of
takes
sort of
that
get-
money out of your campaign. So if you are running for a statewide office or for Congress for the first time, and you're not like a multimillionaire, you would use that $2,500 or $5,000
Yes.
for flyers, for
Travel,
signs,
expenses,
travels,
whatever.
all of
To
those
get your
things.
primary
Yes.
position out
Precisely.
there.
So it just was really, it's really interesting, some of the things going on too. And when you add them all up, it makes one wonder why it's going on. I just want to know why you would push those things. And I would welcome somebody to explain that to me, because it just seems punitive and it has an untoward appearance.
It does. It sounds like a pay to play.
It kind of does.
And motive, and the perception is reality. And so when you
Yes.
couple the two, and what does it appear like to the voters out there, I think there's people that are probably cutting their own throat
I
in
want
this
to
whole
tell you about
process.
what we did when we walked out. And that was a big uproar. I think it was unfortunately probably misconstrued by those who were in the room. They really did not know why we were leaving. They really did, because we weren't given an opportunity to say. And so what we did was the 8 of us left. There were 7 district chairs and then me, and we walked out of the building. And then we went and we got together and we crafted a letter to them. And I'm going to show you some pieces of the letter. I brought them along with me so that you can see them. This first one says, "State committee members, we are writing to you in order to provide a clear explanation for our actions today. Our decision to walk out of the state committee meeting in protest was not taken lightly, and believe me, lots of deliberation before we did this. We are all proud Republicans who believe in the principles of our party. We respect the organization and every member who takes time away from their lives and families to serve our party, including those with whom we may disagree." And I'm going to skip down here. In the 2021 special session, the legislature gave our chair the authority over district committees which were impacted by the redistricting process. The law states that the chair may appoint a district chair to fill a vacancy, and our chair decided to use that power to appoint 8 chairs and call a meeting of the state committee. So that was part of the problem. The other thing that I want to show you is it was our intention to postpone these discussions until such time as duly elected committee members would be present. Therefore, we chose to not legitimize these proceedings. And the last page shows who it is that walked out. And it was me, and then Mike Blessum from District 5. He was the vice chair, and he's the proxy for District 5. Reed Kramer from District 6, who is a chairman. Paul Henderson, District 9B, technically, who is a proxy also. Bill Kuntz, District 14. Dan Johnston II, who is sitting in for his father in District 24. Jared Hendricks from District 38, and Jay Lundy in District 40. Both those last two are from Minot. They are both chairmen. So this is with whom I walked, and what a stand-up group of gentlemen. I'm just here to tell you, amazing patriots all. And it took a lot of guts for them to walk away, because they knew that they were going to have to go back to their district and explain it. And so far, what they have told me is that their districts are very much in support of what they did to bring attention to the fact that this could be a problem. And as I said in a press conference on Monday, it's not just North Dakota that this affects, because if you have redistricting in all the different states during the year of the census, they might be having similar problems like that, and we want to kind of nip this in the bud. What if it was 20? What if there were 20 districts that were redistricted and not just 8? What a difference that would make.
Yes.
So it was important for us to bring it to the attention not only of the state committee at the meeting, but also to the public so that they know what's going on.
So let's talk a little bit about the young Republicans and the college Republicans getting booted off the voting.
Well, back in June, they were given ex officio status, which is interesting. Ex officio means basically you are part of the committee, but you are not allowed to vote. You may not do a motion. You, I think, can be part of the discussion, but you cannot, you're neutered, essentially. Definitely your vote is taken away, and so your voice is squelched. So that was done in June to them at that meeting. And then we got the packet and the information for the upcoming December 18th meeting. And it was a motion, I mean, it was a goal to get them completely off the state committee and completely give them no voice whatsoever and move them again to ex officio status. So they had voting status since 2019, and they were part of, you know, you think about it, the future of your party is the young Republicans and the CRs, the college Republicans. And the young Republicans range in age from 18 to 40, and that's my heart is with the YRs. I love the YRs. I have spoken to them in various capacities at their conventions. I'm speaking to their convention again in January again, and I just love them. They are the worker bees of our party. They're the ones who are the first ones to jump in the car and drive to Minnesota and help them in CD8 get Michelle Fischbach. In fact, I have the actual statement and press release that the YRs put out on the 18th is just wonderful. Daryl Mindeman joined us at our press conference on Monday. And by the way, press conference, if you want to see the press conference, it aired on Beck, so I am betting that it's going to be archived on our Beck.news website. So check it out there, look for it there, and you can see the press conference. It was about 45 minutes, and Daryl Mindeman spoke to it there. But they put this out on the 18th, and they said for the NDYR has a seat on the ND GOP State Committee since 2019, serving to represent the young professionals of the Republican Party. While lauded for their effort during campaigns by such figures as Kevin Kramer, NDYR's effort to make their voice heard in other aspects of the political process were received with disapproval by the party. At the state committee meeting, the agenda included an amendment to remove the NDYRs and CRs from the board completely. The concern was stated over double representation for young Republicans, as their district chair was also present. In response to this, a motion was made by District 2 Chairman and Representative all-around rock star Justin LaBar to remove other positions from the state committee that were doubly represented as well, because he was not wrong about that. NDYR applauds this motion and is in full support, yet the motion was ruled out of order. While NDYR commends the state committee's decision to keep YRs on the board, though as non-voting members, so they are now ex officio on this member. Anyway, the other thing that I wanted to talk about on this is the goals of the North Dakota Young Republicans are aligned with the Republican Party platform. And that is part of the deal also, is that I personally, when I ran for National Committee Woman, I ran on supporting the platform. I'm in favor of the Constitution of the state of North Dakota and the U.S. Constitution. That's what I run on. That's how I vote on the RNC. That's my guiding principles right there. In addition to that, well, first and foremost, God, family, country, then party down there. Anyway, what they say in here, NDYR seeks to advocate for conservative principles. This is my favorite part too. NDYR is unashamedly pro-life and stands with the party platform, including that traditional marriage is between one man and one woman.
Boom.
Booyah. Yeah.
Amen.
So here, these youngsters are very conservative. And there are those in the party that want to water down our platform. They want to water down our resolutions. They want to eliminate some things that deal with those tough issues as they see them. I don't see those as tough issues.
Well,
Can I just, go ahead.
I was going to say, we had Senator Heitkamp on last week, and he had even brought up the fact, you know, I'm having a coughing spell. So.
Okay.
Anyway, so he had talked about, I lost my train of thought, you guys.
Oh.
I'm trying not to cough.
Oh,
Go ahead,
I'll
Carmen.
go ahead and you do what you need to do. Okay, so, this is going to be a dumb question.
There are no
but
dumb questions.
I am a viewer right now that you lost me a little ways back there because it was all about, they were using the excuse or the premise of double voting.
Yes.
However, I want to know, we had a case where we had a district chair who also became the head of the North Dakota GOP. And so at your state meeting, that's a double vote.
Right.
He was supposedly voting for our district and as the state committee person. However, he had a proxy to do his district vote. So why couldn't young Republicans just make sure they had a proxy so there was no confusion on double voting? I don't understand that part.
I don't understand that either, because it seems like rule changes appear to be in favor of making it more difficult for the conservative part of the state to get their voice heard.
Okay, so I just remembered my question about Heitkamp. All right,
okay.
he had talked about some of the legislators that we have, they vote 5% conservative or 15% conservative. So now they're trying to get rid of conservative young people who want to get involved in the party, and they're allowing people run on a ticket with an R beside their name, and it just doesn't make any sense. It almost sounds like we're going towards socialism or even further.
Yeah.
I don't know. All I know is that it just appears untoward. And that is the best way. Whether it is purposeful or not is, I'm very curious. It just appears like it's purposeful.
Well, if it's not purposeful, they wouldn't do it.
It's curious. It's curious. And there were some very sweeping changes. There were a lot of sweeping changes, and you'll be hearing about that, I'm certain, in the next few weeks as information gets out about what did occur at the meeting. I was not at the meeting. I was there for the first, hour and a half or so, two hours maybe. But after that, I have been getting tidbits and bits and pieces about what happened at the meeting, and some good, some not so great. They did pass a code of conduct. The interesting thing about the code of conduct, I was told, was what they did was they immediately after we left passed this code of conduct, which had the word perceived in it. I'm going to let you think about that. So if you have the word perceived violation or a perceived issue with something, that is open completely to interpretation, is it not? And that was my big red flag. I'm a wordsmith, and so.
And interpretation by whom?
Who's
Perceived by whom?
Yes,
Yep.
that's
So that
a
is
lot of
very
open
interesting
doors.
to me. But when I saw that, I was like, okay, that this can be weaponized.
Yes.
The purpose of a code of conduct is in order to bring people in line if you perceive them to be not towing the line with what you want.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was my opinion too. It was like, wow.
How
okay.
do we define socialism?
Right. Well, I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do, because right as we were walking out, after we walked out and they voted on this, one chairman reportedly said, "I think we should use this code of conduct to punish those people who just walked out of the room."
Oh,
What?
my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
See, well, that kind of tells you what the
But yet, no,
purposeful
no,
thing
no,
is.
we're not going to weaponize it. We're not going to punish people. We're not going to use this against them, against political, opponents.
No, but I got to tell you that people that I have spoken with since this took place, especially the grassroots people, they take it as a complete aim directly between the eyes, because everything that they saw pass, they saw it as a block instead of a stepping stone.
Right.
It's like, okay, we're becoming politically aware. We want to make a difference in our world. We want to have a positive impact. So we're going to get off the couch and we're going to participate. And everything they did told them, sit down and shut up.
I like to put it this way. I am a big fan of with the YRs, with the CRs, with grassroots people. I'm a lover of grassroots. That's where I came from. I came from the grassroots and then ran for office because I felt a calling and compelled to do my part. But I find it two words: exclusion and inclusion. Yes. You could do one or the other. You can include people or you can exclude them. And it appears that the obstructionist, the exclusion is ruling the day right now.
Anyway, so we're going to talk about the maps, first of all,
Okay.
the different that happened as a result of the reorg.
Well, the first map I'm going to show you is of the 8 districts that were represented by people who were appointed. So you can see on the left 23, 26, 39, and 36 on the western part of the state. And then you've got 8 down south, 28, 10, and 19. So all of those districts, and take a good look at that, because if you are in one of those districts, you didn't necessarily have proper representation at the state committee meeting because you had somebody appointed that position that you did not get to elect. So if you live in one of those areas, and the interesting thing about this map too, you can see all these black marks all over there. This is a bitmap map, so it's really hard to get a really good view of it. I really wanted to have them outlined so you could see exactly where the borders are, but that kind of a map just does not allow you to do that. This is the legislative map. You can see this map at legis.nd.gov, legis.nd.gov, and look for Redistricting Maps. The next map that I would like to show you is the one of 13 districts. Why 13 districts? Well, 13 districts that had redistricting changes met the criteria for having reorganization. So there will be 13 districts across the state that will be having to have reorgs. Now my district, which is kind of in the center left there where all the yellow ones converge in that little circle there, that's Bismarck-Mandan. In my district, we lost one whole precinct to from 47 where I live, and it went right into 35 now. So those people in that district, like, they don't get to reorg, but they're moved, and so you have to be aware of where you live and where you are in your district now. So it kind of makes it more difficult for the general John Q. public to figure out where exactly I'm supposed to get involved with this too. So can we talk a little bit about reorganization?
Amen.
All
Yes,
right,
go
so
for it.
reorgs are where the sausage is made. That's where the rubber hits the road. It is that's again close to my heart because it's the grassroots part of the political process in our state anyway. When you go to a reorganization meeting, you usually well, that's not true. Every district is different, which is why it's super confusing in addition to everything else. Everybody has different bylaws. Some districts ask you to pay a fee for that district. Most of them ask that you pay a fee to the state, that you are a member in good standing with the state party. That fee, by the way, at the meeting did go up from $36.50 a year to $50. It is now $50 to be a member of the Republican Party. That happened at the meeting as
The
well.
state Republican.
The state Republican,
inflation stuff. God.
Yeah.
But you do not have to pay, depending upon the bylaws, you do not have to pay the state fee in order to become a member in your district.
Correct. And that's what I'm saying. It's very different. So first thing you need to do is find out which district you're in. So how do you do that? Well, there is a wonderful little tool on the website for the legislative website. Once again, it's upper right-hand corner at the Secretary of State's link. And it's vote.nd.gov. You can go to that. I don't know why I can remember all of these sites, but I go to them and refer people to them. But you go to vote.nd.gov, and in the upper right-hand corner, you put only your house number and your zip code. You don't need your street or anything like that, just your house number. It'll give you a list, and you hit submit, and you can find your exact location of your home. When you click on that, it'll tell you your legislative district. Now, caveat, I'm pretty sure they've not been updated yet.
Yes,
And
that's
so
true.
you have to wait until January 1st, probably, likely. I know that the counties right now are working on defining and writing the lines and making sure that they've got their ducks in a row on the county levels. So we have districts and then we also have counties, but the counties have to help write the lines. So after the first of the year, that's when the reorgs can start beginning to happen. Reorganization, and you sound like you're really in the know if you say reorg. It's like it's a reorg. But go and find out from your district chairman once you figure out which district in which you reside. Figure out who your district chairman is. How do you do that? Another website. You can go to ndgop.org. ndgop.org, NorthDakotaGOP.org. And on that site, you can click on State Committee. When you see State Committee, the list of all 47 districts will show up, and they will tell you who the current person is who is the chairman of, and hopefully that will be updated as well. If you call that person and they say, I'm not the one, then you get them to tell you who the correct one is. But there's contact information on there as well. So that's how you get involved on the grassroots level. Then you ask that chairman to send you an email, give them your email so that you're on the email list, and then you get yourself on the emailing list and find out when the reorganization meeting is.
And ask for a copy of the bylaws.
Ask for a copy of the bylaws. That will tell you what's going to be required of you to vote and get involved in that particular district. Another good pro tip is on that ndgop.org website, you can see a calendar. And so if you haven't heard, I would check back frequently and see if you can see that if you have a reorganization meeting listed on that calendar that's coming up in your district as well.
Or look at the official newspaper for your district, and they have to notice that meeting at least 10 days in advance.
Correct.
So you can be watching for that too.
Amen.
You don't want to miss your reorg. It's the really important part. That's where precinct committee people are elected, where your executive committee is elected, your chairman, vice chair, or however many vice chairs. It varies by district again. Some people have 15 people on their executive committee. Sometimes they have 6. So it's all different.
Important, those positions are what take, as a grassroots person, if I'm just Joe Blow, normal voter, just leave me alone, let me live my life. It's important to find out who these people are, because if you have a concern, let's say your road just isn't getting the attention it needs, who do you get a hold of? You can call the county and complain, but where do you go with all that? These meetings, these reorg meetings, you get to know these people, and you want to put good people in those positions that you think will help your beliefs and your causes get to the right ears so that the right laws and things can be put on the books. I mean, it all works together, and I think people tend to forget that. And
Ground up.
you know,
that was one of my big things, because you can have a government that is top down. That's what the Biden administration is totally doing. They're dictating this and that and edicts and things like that. Or you can go bottom up, and that's the way it's set up.
Yes.
Grassroots, work your way up to the district level as a precinct person, district level, state level, and that's how it's supposed to work.
Well, not only that, but even within your own districts, it's supposed to come from the people. It's not supposed to be, hey, the chairman makes this decision. In fact, in our bylaws, District 31, it says that the chairman can go ahead and use his or her own judgment to make a decision.
Wow. You need to change those bylaws.
Well,
That's
that's
like
something that needs to be
perceived.
done. Again,
It's
But you have
very
to
open to
understand that
interpretation.
there are times when they follow all of the rules and they are not recognized. And District 8 would be a good example of that, because they went through the lawful protocol to remove a member that was not doing their job, and that was not recognized by the state. They also, after the redistricting, they voted a new executive committee with the quorum of the members that were left, which is how they read it from 1513. And they were not able to be recognized by the state, and so they had a chairman appointed. But they still have that committee.
You know what?
So
what
it's
it
crazy.
takes on the most basic level is people and more of them.
Yes.
Get
the
out,
numbers.
get people, grab the neighbors,
Yeah, hello.
get them to the reorg because they're in the same district probably as you. Get them to the reorganization meeting. It must be held between January 1st and May 15th. So most of them will be in January and February. So be ready and be ready to go at the beginning of the year.
Sure, I think we'll try to go ahead and get those dates so that they're available for our viewers, because our viewers are passionate about being involved, and it just takes that, you know. I think the Republican Party, or let's just say the GOP, has kind of shot themselves in the foot, where they're trying to disenfranchise people. Those that have been disenfranchised, they're not going to sit around. I have a feeling that things are going to get ugly. If you lose half of the Republican Party and half the Democrats are mad at Biden and his administration, then you have 50%. So you have 25% GOP out here. We have 25% Democrats. You have 50% right in the middle. I think that's where most of North Dakota sits. So we're not going to solve it all here today, Lori, but I want to thank you for coming by.
I'm happy to give some information to people, as I say all the time. Courage is contagious, and I hope people get courage and get courageous and get to those reorgs and get busy.